Hey guys, so we're going to continue on with this design here. So we've got this sort of spiral ribbon type design that we made using a portrait, either this portrait or a different one, and we're going to animate it. Now there are animation capabilities inside Photoshop, and the reason why we're doing this is because it's become kind of a thing now with whatever, like, you know, web design, web ads that you do. There tends to be a little bit of animation in it, and we're just going to add just a couple little things to make this sort of like come apart and come back together. We're going to do this step by step. For the first step is just to have the person themselves kind of open up and then collapse back down on themselves. So we'll keep it like this for now. And I'm going to do a couple things before I go into this. So you might notice here that when you create your shapes, that they have these little vector shapes. I'm gonna go ahead and right click on these and make sure that I have rasterized these layers here. So this is grayed out for me because I've already done this. But go ahead and right click on each one of your shape layers here and make sure that they've been rasterized. So you won't see that little kind of like bug there, and you won't be able to manipulate their anchor points anymore. But at this point, you know, once you have them finalized, look the way you want to look. It's not a big deal. And then I'm going to go ahead and take away the little gradient map that I put on top of it, and I'll just kind of keep that sort of there. And the last thing I'll do before I move on to the other program here is I'm going to go to image size, and I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at pixels here, right? So the pixels, and so you might notice that your pixels are somewhere in the neighborhood of, like, you know, I don't know, 4,000 or something like that. You want to make sure the height is, say, 1,200 or lower. You want that to be kind of low. Because we want this to be, you know, somewhat navigable when it comes to creating this animation that we're doing. Because if we make something that's going to be 4,000 pixels wide, that's basically doing like a 4K image or a picture. We don't want to do anything like that. This is going to be close to HD. We could even make this a little bit smaller. We could even make this like height like 720 or something like that if we felt so inclined, right? And so I might go ahead and just do that, just have it be small enough to, you know, kind of fit inside this this little thing here. So once you have all that settled, let's go over here to File, Save. I'm going to go ahead and press Save As, and I'm going to save this as a new thing. I'll call it, like, you know, I'll call it Surreal Portrait Animation Roots, or whatever, base. And I'll just save that there, make sure that's somewhere I can find it here, and I'll go over here to my Adobe After Effects. So you find After Effects in the same folder as you find Photoshop. Just open that up. It'll take a second to load up, and hopefully this will work, and if not, then we'll do something else. But real quick, we'll make a new project here, and I'm going to go over here to View, and I'm going to go to Window, Workspace. I'm going to go to Default, and I'm going to say Reset Default to save layout, just so we're all looking at the same thing. I might dismiss a couple of windows here or there, but you should see something like this. It's going to look a little bit different because my screen is a little bit different from yours as far as like resolution goes. Okay, so don't be alarmed at this new program. Some of us have used this before, some of us have not. It's not as daunting as you might think. All we're going to do is just, it's got a lot of the same kind of things that Photoshop has, like layers and stuff. The difference, of course, is that we've got this little timeline, much the same way we used timelines in the past. And we're going to be just doing a couple of little edits here or there. Nothing too fancy here. So I'll go click on New Composition from Footage, and I'm going to find that little Surreal Portrait Animation base. I'll press Import, and import kind composition, and make sure that well, you know, these right here don't really matter, but I'm going to say composition for now, and I'll press OK. So once I do that, this will pop up, which I'm going to go ahead and pull this up to, say, for instance, half, so it looks a little less. So a couple of things are going on right now, right? So I've got this whole image. This image here is just hanging out inside After Effects. I don't want that. I'm just going to delete this. So I'm going to go down here. I'll click on this. I'll just press delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. I don't need that. If I go over here to my Surreal layers, you should see this right here, or whatever you named your Photoshop Surreal Portrait Animation Based Layers. If you click on this little arrow, it should pull this down. Now what I did earlier was I went down to this little resolution factor or whatever. Essentially what we're doing is just kind of using a file that's located somewhere, and through whatever processing, After Effects is essentially previewing how it's going to look when it animates, and it uses a lot of RAM, and hopefully the processing power of these new devices are going to help out with that. But there you go. So, and if you are not a part of my class, you're just watching this on YouTube, then don't worry about that. Anyways, we've got several. You can click on these, and you can see you've got several. You get a little preview up here that you can kind of look through. So I'll just start at the bottom here, starting with the shoulders. And I'll just pull the shoulders down. The shoulders will be hanging out right there. The shoulders don't need to be animated, so I'll hit this little lock icon, this little padlock here, and I'll click on that. If you don't see all this stuff over here, you can switch on this little toggle switches and modes, and for now, I'll just leave it here for normal. So if this is what you see, then fantastic. But there you go. Let's look down here. I'll ignore the shapes for now. Let's find, I think mouth is what I call it, the next one. I'll put that on a layer below. Right, there we go there. And then over here, eyes and something else. Right, eyes and ear, eyes and nose, I guess. And then forehead, and then top of head. Top of head right there. Okay, and then we've got all that, and then finally we can put our gradient layer. We'll just pull this down here, and obviously if your gradient looks different. But what's cool about this, I'll save this real fast, and I'll save this as portrait manipulation animation, right? And I'll just save it for now. Just make sure we have this available. Make sure that you're saving this, because obviously errors might occur, but also so you can come back to this and do the second part of the animation here. If we go to Photoshop and I go down to my gradient fill here and say, for instance, change the gradient color to something different, like say for instance this little purple and orange thing. Maybe I want to like make this a little more. There you go. You can kind of see that that's changed there. I can save this, and it should show up over here if I were to. There we go. And then it changed. So whatever changes you make inside Photoshop will be reflected over here inside inside this this thing here. So maybe I don't want to. Oh, that maybe I'll just have like a aqua to aqua kind of a gradient here. I'll switch these out. Okay, it's okay. And these changes don't occur until you save them. Unless you save them in Photoshop, they won't show up here in After Effects. I'll say this again. Okay, so all that done, we can begin the animation process. So if you go over here to Composition and Composition Settings, let's get our composition to be about the same length. So mine right now is about 8 seconds long. I'm going to change that down to about 5 seconds. So you should see here we've got hours, minutes, seconds, so 5, and then we've got like hundreds, or frames rather. In this case, the frame rate here, the number of little frames a second, is set to 24, even though it says 23.976. If that's what it's set to, that's fantastic. If not, you could go ahead and change it there to 24 or 23.976, just so we're all on the same page, and we can we're looking at the same thing here. And press OK. And that way, when you look at this this little timeline down here, it shows you 0 seconds. If you're zoomed all the way out, that you can zoom in and out of this. You can make the spaces between the seconds bigger by hitting this little mountain icon, or the far away mountain icon here. So this should be fine here. Okay, so we're going to choose a random spot here. We're going to basically have this thing sort of expand out to this height here, and then collapse back down. So what we'll do is we're going to lock down the gradient here. So it's this little padlock icon. Hit this little square below that padlock icon. Select everything. and then on your keyboard hit the letter P, and that'll bring up your position. And before we hit anything over here, I'm going to drag this little blue diamond until we get to, say, for instance, I don't know, maybe 2 seconds in. How about 1.5 seconds in? So you should see like 1 and then 12 frames. The 12F stands for 12 frames. We've got 24 frames a second, so 12 frames is a half second point. And so there we go. So with that done, I'll hit this little position keyframe right here. So everything will kind of come up to here, and then we'll come over this way and we'll hit the sort of keyframe again. We'll add a new frame, a new essential keyframe here, right here. Now, what do I mean by keyframe? Keyframes are essentially just telling the program, I want at this point in time everything to have these specific attributes. So at 1 second and 12 frames, all these pieces, these little diamonds here, they mean that these little pieces are going to be right there on that little time frame. Now, let's go over here to the beginning, but maybe like, I don't know, like 1 second in, so we'll have like a half a second of animation here. Let's just click anywhere where there's no, there's no bar there, anywhere in this sort of dark gray area, and let's actually start animating these things back. Okay, so we've got like the shoulders here on the bottom, and I'm going to go over here to my position and hover over these little coordinates here. So this is your x coordinates and your y coordinates. They equal out to about half of the value of each one. So it was like 720 was the height that I chose. So 360 is the very center. That makes sense, right? 720 divided by 2. I'm not going to click directly on it. If I click directly on it, it's going to ask me to type something. I don't want to type anything, so I'm just going to click and drag towards the right. And then it's going to lower down this sort of shape here, and I'm going to just eyeball that until I can get it to where it's sort of lined up. If you want to zoom in some, you can hover your mouse over here and roll up with the mouse wheel, or you can click right here where it shows the magnification ratio. In this case, it's fitted to the screen. I'm just going to zoom in to 200%, and then if you click anywhere on here, you can hold down the space bar, much like Photoshop, and just drag down until you can see something. Right? So I can see that right there. Okay, so that's got that right there. That's kind of hanging out. I'll do the same thing for the eyes. I'll click on the eyes, and I'll do the same thing. I'll just click and drag until the eyes match up. Try to avoid any spaces here, and avoid it going too far down. We don't want to erase the nose. That would look silly. Okay, there's that. The same thing down here for the forehead. Roll this down here. Like so. Okay, that's about right. Looks like there's a little gap there. Let me get in closer. A little gap. Maybe not enough to notice, but there you go, cool. And then finally for the top of the head, click on the top of the head there and then drag that down like so. Okay, so what we'll do now is we can kind of preview this. If you hit the little magnification there and go to fit, if you click over here onto the timeline and you hit the space bar, it should play, right? And you can see that grow, and then it stays there, right? And so in between these two keyframes, right, so this keyframe here says that we want them to be hanging out right here together, and then over the course of the next half second, they'll all go different directions. And then over here, it'll stay kind of put, and then we're gonna do advance forward, say another half second, and we're going to bring them back to where they were. Now, we don't have to do this, we don't have to eyeball this again. All we have to do is just take these little keyframes here and hold down the control button, Control C, and then Control V. And then that'll bring it back down to that same value here. Click on this keyframe, Control C, Control V. Click on this keyframe, Control C, Control V. Click on this keyframe, Control C, Control V. Now, this will start to repeat if we start to play it. Okay, so that's all fine and good. What I found was that this works best if you can kind of stagger them a little bit, because these are moving in different directions here, different distances. You can have them kind of go in, say for instance, a different order. The way I did this is by advancing forward 2 frames and then spacing these out. So I could go to page down on the keyboard, the little page down button that's above your arrow keys, page down twice, once, twice. Let's click on the timeline here. Once, oh wait, function is off, once, twice. All right. And then I'll just drag this over once, twice. Drag this over once, twice. Drag this over. And let's see how this looks. All right, and so that way it seems as if there's a bit more, this like the top of the head moves a little bit slower. I wonder if that's actually, yeah. So you can see it has a sort of collapsing kind of a feel to it. And so the same thing, we'll do that like in reverse order here. We'll have all this start right here, and then we'll just kind of do the same thing. We'll just go page down, and then drag this over, page down, drag this over, page down, drag this over, and then let's see how this looks. Okay, probably not like that, because that will actually collapse the head on top of the forehead there. So we'll just reverse that. 1, 2. Let's see how this looks. There we go. And so it kind of collapses back down. So there you go. So it was like up, down, up, down. There we go. Cool. Okay, so last thing we'll do before we stop is we'll just highlight everything here, and we'll right-click on any one of these keyframes and go to Keyframe Assistant and hit this little button that says Easy Ease, which essentially just smooths out. It's like it sort of smooths everything out to make it not move so jerky. So okay, and you can kind of watch it repeat here. Up and down. Okay, I'm wondering if there's at all like an overlap here. I don't think there's any moment where anything. Okay, good, cool. That's fun. All right, fun. Okay, I like that. All right, so let's go ahead and just export this as an MP4. So what we want to do is we want to go over here to File, Export, Add to Media Encoder Queue. This is going to take a second for this new program to open up, so I'm just going to cut to there. Okay, so we are here inside the Media Encoder program. What we'll do now is we'll determine where this is going to go. Right? So you have a couple things happening here. If you don't see H.264 listed right there, hit this little arrow and choose H.264. If you don't see, you'll probably see match source high bitrate. That's probably fine. What we'll do is we'll click on this right here, and we'll go over here to our File Explorer, and we'll find a place to put it. You'll probably want to put it in your downloads, and I'll just make this Surreal Portrait Animation. I'll take away the word base, and I'll call it 1. And then we'll just press Save, and then we'll hit this little green play button here. And this should export pretty easily. Okay. Once you have that done, you can click on this, and it will bring up the folder where it's located at, and this is the file you want to turn in. But before you get done, you want to make sure you have saved this, saved all your progress here, and we'll come back to the little ribbon shapes in the background in the next lesson here. So that's all for today. Turn in your MP4. Let's take a look at it real fast. I kind of like that. It's kind of fun. I'll put it on repeat real fast. Repeat, and we'll just see how that goes. Up, down, very smooth. Up, down, fantastic. All right, well, can't wait to see you guys produce. I'll see you all in class.